There's nothing that Hollywood does best than completely ruin a book by turning it into a movie. To be fair, it's pretty hard to adapt a book into a movie because there's so many differences in the two mediums. And I feel like there's a wide range where a movie can still be a good adaptation of a book even though it's not exactly like the book. Like with a really complicated book where the themes are the most important things, I feel like a movie can be completely different from the original story but still have those themes and therefore be a good adaptation. But then when you're adapting a book like, I don't know, Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, it's not really up to interpretation, you know? There's specific events that happen in specific order and specific characters that go through those events. Then if you just start like erasing stuff from the original books and just replacing it with new stuff, it doesn't feel like the books anymore and all the fans will be disappointed. Like the smallest things will piss fans off because they know the books by heart so much.
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
But then again, you can't include everything. So according to me, a good book adaptation into a film or a series or whatever has this. The same basic plot elements as the book, where events happen and we want to see them on the big screen. And I feel like the genius of good book adaptations sometimes is seeing how the filmmakers manage to include all the important elements but still like mix scenes together so as to not make it like the longest thing ever. So when instead of trying to do that, filmmakers just like erase something from the story, I feel like that's just when you didn't try hard enough. Second thing is the characters having the same personality as in the books, which is really hard for some reason. Like if you add a different plotline to the story and have the characters that we know and love react in a way that they never would in the books, I'm not watching the same people as I read about it. That's not what I want to see. So, based on these two things, which are really vague, let's try and figure out if Heartstopper is or not a good adaptation from the original webcomic. There will be spoilers, obviously. I feel like Heartstopper being a webcomic instead of a novel was already so much of a bigger challenge for the filmmakers because, first of all, we know the characters by heart, like we know what they look like, so already you don't have that much freedom into casting because we want to see the drawing characters into real people. But like on that note, Jesus Christ, impeccable casting. I don't know how they did it, but everyone looks exactly as they should. Like even costume and haircut wise, you could immediately recognize all the characters from the comic as if they just really came to life. Even though I think we can all agree that they could have made Tao a bit less like the comic just for the sake of giving him a better haircut. What the fuck was that? And because Heartstopper is originally a webcomic, you already have a specific way to capture the story. Like there's already shots that were created to tell the story of Nick and Charlie. So they already had that to recreate, which they also did pretty well. I've been seeing a lot of screen captures from the show and then screen captures from the comic, and it's beautiful seeing it act like what we saw as a drawing actually just come to life almost like perfectly, exactly as it was. And also, the freaking little leaves floating around everywhere. Insane that they added that. Now, although the characters that we knew and loved were really well casted, there was one thing that changed in the addition of Isaac and Imogen. Starting with Isaac, he was, if anything, just not necessary. Like, I get that he's a replacement for Aled in the web series, in the web comic, probably because he has his own story, and maybe if eventually you want to make that story into a film or a series, having him in Heartstopper would just mess up everything, so I get that. But why add him? He basically doesn't speak. I mean, he's there to be a third person, a third friend, so Charlie seems like he has a bit more at school. And sometimes the whole gang is together and he's just not invited. Or maybe we're supposed to like imagine that they did invite him, but he was too antisocial to actually show up. I guess Isaac is okay. But now Imogen, that is another story. And when they announced that she would be in the show through this Instagram post, there was this, and yeah, I think we all saw it coming, and I think no one was happy about it. They decided to put her in between Charlie and Nick and make it harder for them to get together, which I did not like where they were going with this, but like, also I get it. If you think about it, it's pretty easy for Charlie and Nick to get together in the comic because there's no really obstacles between them. Like there's obstacles against them, but nothing that pulls them apart, which is more dramatic. They basically added this element with Imogen where Charlie and Nick maybe will not get together, which is not at all a question in the comics. It makes the whole story more dramatic. It makes Nick's like confusion that much more important. It gives us this wonderful scene afterwards, which like almost makes up for the awful scene of the rugby game. Also, we were robbed from the original ending of the rugby game, which is this, for almost separating Nick and Charlie. I'm pissed. And then they also kind of switched up some reaction to events, still in this idea of like trying to pull Charlie and Nick away from each other. Like when Nick punches Harry in the comic, Charlie kind of likes it. In the series, it makes him almost want to break up with him. So, you know, that's a little bit of a extremely different reaction. To be fair, it does work because he doesn't want to break up with him because of what Nick did. He wants to break up with him because Charlie thinks that he's forcing Nick to, you know, give up his friends and get into fights and stuff, which is definitely something book Charlie would think. And also, that's why they made Tao learn so much quicker that Nick and Charlie are actually a thing, just so it could line up with Charlie ignoring Nick and have this wonderful big, non-existent in the comic, all is lost moment. There's definitely a certain amount of change that has to be done. I don't think Heartstopper went overboard. They did change some things, we went over that, but I think there's always a positive aspect to the change. It's not just they changed it for conveniency purposes, they actually changed it so they could tell something else to make the story more interesting without changing the story at its heart. We still get a really cute happy ending, we get all the cute moments that we loved from the comic. All the characters feel like the characters from the webcomic. They don't feel like they've changed, except maybe Nick agreeing to the date. I don't think book Nick would have done that. I'm really pissed about it still, but it's okay. And not only do we get the characters that feel like the books, we get even more of the characters from the book. We get more of everyone, which is even nicer, and it does add some storylines, but like who cares when you get to meet all of these amazing characters that we didn't get to know as much in the comic. The two are good. The two are worth your time, and I think a lot of people agree on that. So, Heartstopper is definitely a really good example of a comic adaptation done right. And that's all I had to say about that. So, okay, bye.